Good evening.
You have to text.
Welcome to the Kenmore-Tonawanda Union Free School District Board of Education meeting for October 13th, 2020. District Clerk, please note that all trustees are present. Wow, this is awesome. It's great to see people again. It's been a long time. Please stand for the pledge. Our pledge this evening will be led by Franklin Elementary School staff. It was taped on 9/11 with local firefighters and police officers. And then please remain standing for our national anthem, which will be led by the Edison Elementary School class of 2030, our third graders.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we begin, I'd like to read our district's vision and mission statement and our values to keep in mind as we help us guide our decision making this evening. Our district's vision is a community that creates dynamic learners who possess social awareness, confidence, and a belief in their power to succeed. Our mission statement, the Kenton School community, will provide our students with the supports, tools, and diverse opportunities needed to meet the challenges of an ever-changing world. And our values are mutual respect, independence, trust, teamwork, integrity, passion for excellence, and responsibility. Okay, item 4A is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved by Leslie. Second by, is that Andrew?
Yep.
Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 4B is the approval of the minutes from the September 8th, 2020 board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved by Tom. Second by Leslie. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 4C is the approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2020 Special Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Jen. Second by Leslie. Is there any discussion? Okay, There being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor, so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, item 5 is our Edison recognition. As I said, it's great to see people here again. It was a long time. It's been a long time coming. But we're now being able to recognize schools and those staff and students in those schools that have achieved really cool things is something that I really missed over the time that we worked hard. So I'm going to turn this part over to Superintendent Samato.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So just some housekeeping of how we're going to proceed. And Patrick, maybe you can help me. Let's put this microphone back over here. We could just leave it there and I'll use this one. Okay, thank you so much. So good evening once again. So for this portion, my first time doing it, so bear with me, but a lot of procedures are different for this evening. You can see that our audience, we invited a live community to be, that was a little slip, but we invited our community to join us live, and our public is seated, socially distant. We are trying to catch up from last month as well, so we'll be recognizing 2 schools tonight and members from each school. One school is Edison. Edison we'll get to in one moment, and then Franklin will join us afterwards. So let's just go through all the procedures first, if you wouldn't mind. So for our recognitions, we'll start there. As I recognize each person, and Gina, help me and correct me if I mess up any of this procedure, but after I read about this person, we'll invite the individual up. The individual will come up and they'll actually take their own award right off of the table so that I'm not actually touching that award. We're trying to just be as safe as possible. We'll have that individual sit here. Please excuse that old school, no pun intended there, but this older looking chair, because then once they sit down, I'll invite President Shamara up. We'll take a picture behind that person, standing behind that person, and then I'll sanitize the seat for the next person as well, okay? So that'll at least bring us through our recognitions, and then I'll introduce the presentations when we get to that point. So let's start with our first set of recognitions, and this is from Edison Elementary School. And our first recognition, of course, is our student, Braylin Miller. So Braylin, if you could stand right here and take a look out so that everybody can see how lovely you look. From teachers past and present, Braylin is praised as an outstanding example of our Edison Eagle SOAR program. An outstanding, responsible, and respectful student, Braylin makes it a point to be a friend to all. As a teacher emphatically states, Braylin Miller is not only a fantastic student, but she is an outstanding person. She cares about others. It's important to Braylin that others' feelings are taken into consideration. She strives to do her best, especially when it could feel hard. She perseveres. Braylin is a student who makes a difference. And from another, Braylin is the sweetest girl and the consummate soaring eagle. She was a role model for all of her peers. Let's give Braylin a very big round of applause. And Braylin, right here, that's for you. And then also that t-shirt is for you there. And I would love to shake your hand or even give you a hug, but I can't do it today. But I'll have you sit here and then invite President Shamara up for a nice picture.
Everybody smile, we can tell even with the masks on. So you got 3, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Okay. And Mom and Dad, if you want to come up also, since you are the parents, and you can maybe just stand next to Braylin on either side, and we'll kind of angle ourselves away from you a little bit, but so that we could be in the picture behind you as well.
Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Excellent.
Thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. So our staff member, Miss Debbie Reynolds. Miss Reynolds? Miss Reynolds, if you'll just turn and face all of our audience. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. I apologize. Thank you so much. Miss Reynolds is a quiet, unassuming dynamo in the library. Her long tenure in the district has been punctuated in the past 10 years as she has worked with 4 different librarians in 2 schools. Debbie is the consummate professional. As her colleagues will tell you, Debbie always sees each task to completion. She is always pleasant and takes the time out to recognize the accomplishments of students and staff alike. She is a treasure in the Edison Library. Please join me in congratulating Miss Debbie Reynolds. And then Debbie, if you could, there's your T-shirt and certificate. You're very welcome. And as long as you could sit down there, we'll... Wonderful. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much for your service. And faculty member, Miss Susan Hirsch. Miss Hirsch? I remembered this time, Gina. I know, right? Okay. Whether it's developing a literacy night for K through 2, hosting readers' theater productions in her classroom, or shaping her passion for gardening, Susan Hirsch puts every ounce of herself into the education of our children. Mrs. Hirsch, a national board certified teacher, most frequently has been seen working tirelessly on the Edison garden. I've seen it myself. Moving soil, rocks, weeding, and occasionally taking a break to watch in wonder at a butterfly. Another passion, reading, has led her to leadership positions in the Niagara Frontier Reading Council, on the front lines of creating professional development and conferences for literacy teachers. As a grade 1 teacher, she excels in working with students in the magic years, where simple letter and work knowledge are transformed into reading. Susan, you are a soaring eagle in every respect. Please join me in giving Mrs. Hirsch a round of applause. Very much. One more time. Thank you. Do you want to introduce the presentation, then I'll talk about the procedure for the presentation?
So now we'll have our Edison Elementary School presentation. Mr. David King, our principal, will be leading that.
Wonderful. So folks, before I turn it over to Mr. King, just once again with all of our, you'll see all of our Edison crew along the back wall, and they'll be participating, and it's like a Vanna White moment, right? It's, and so Mr. King, we'll turn it over to you.
This one? Okay. Good evening, board members and fellow Edison folks. I'm here to obviously introduce our garden extravaganza. We are so proud of the Edison garden, and you couldn't take something from Edison and think about it more in terms of the board mission statement. We are constantly talking about Edison community. And I wanted to share just a little poem. It's called Who Lives in Your Garden? And this is by Kimberly Graves. Who lives in your garden? Did you ever peek and see all the wiggly, wormy, wild things that beneath a rock might be? Did you see a flash of wings when against a leaf you brushed? Did you hear some insect music when the people voices hushed? If you are very quiet, the next time you are outside, you'll have a chance to spy your guests before they fly or hide. A secret tiny world lives down where the green things grow. Who lives in your garden? I think you soon will know. Well, in addition to those creepy crawly things and the beautiful plants, we have our students come into the garden and our teachers, and we are constantly learning from the garden community. And we hope you enjoy our presentation this evening.
In the late 1980s, Jill Tomsick, an Edison parent and school planning team member, suggested beautifying and creating an outdoor science area on the south side of the building. As recently as the early 2000s, we had small grade level gardens on site. 2016 brought a revitalization of the garden designed with input from staff and administration. This is what it looked like before we started. With hard work from Jill Tomsick's sons, faculty, and community volunteers, donations from Home Depot and community members, the main path, butterfly garden, and peace garden took shape. The first seeds were planted in the butterfly garden by students.
In 2017 brought additions to the butterfly and peace gardens, as well as development of the vegetable garden. The start of our Junior Master Gardener Club, JMG, Club for short, thanks to Master Gardener and community member Therese Melchior. Many garden improvements were made possible through a Lowe's Toolbox educational grant. The JMG Club, school staff, and community volunteers worked hard all year. That's the beginning of the peace garden and the beginning of the butterfly garden. The first Edison Family Garden Night was a great success with garden crafts and planting of flowers and vegetables that were donated by the PTA. The all-school growing area was planted with sunflowers, and our first produce was harvested. A compost bin started outside, while vermiculture started indoors.
That was a thank you dinner that we had. Remember This is Jill Tomsik's family. Some of her family, not all of them. 2018 was a very busy year, during which the observation deck was built and installed with help from Buildings and Grounds and Scout Troop 229. Garden benches were added. The all-school growing area was again planted with sunflowers. The JMG Club tried winter sewing for the first time. A little free library inspired by Edison student Logan Almond was donated by the Kenmore Rotary Club. Plans for the ABC Garden began, and we held a second Edison Family Garden Night. A New York State native plant garden was planted. The River of Rocks art installation started under the direction of Wendy Yangst, our art teacher, and Edison fourth graders started.
2019 brought a flourishing butterfly garden with continuing support from our families. The all-school growing area was planted with popcorn, and a bountiful fall popcorn harvest was collected. The popcorn and popcorn facts were packaged by the JMG Club for each classroom to pop and to share. The beginnings of the ABC Garden nursery area happened. A mini beast garden was created for students to dig and explore for critters. Winter brings a favorite activity for the JMG Club, so the garden is used in all seasons.
In 2020, the JMG Club and garden were humming along. An Edison team applied for and received a farm-to-school grant through the Farm Institute of New York State. During the COVID closure, JMG Club continued with independent projects, a scarecrow art show, and a final meeting via Google Meet. We look forward to continuing the JMG Club when it is safe to do so. With the garden flourishing in spite of COVID, the all-school growing area was planted based on the book, Growing Vegetable Soup. We planted a new pumpkin patch. We saw an increase in visitors of all types to the garden. All produce harvested in summer was donated to local families through Kenton Cares, and in fall through local food pantries. The community was invited to add to our River of Rocks since our fourth graders did not have the opportunity to do so. The garden is important. Sorry. Go ahead. The garden is important to both the school and wider community.
Here is one example of the garden's impact on one of our local families.
Hi, my name is Jamie Christ, and I am a community member that lives fairly close to Edison. And my family doesn't attend Edison, but we know several people who have and several people who teach there, and we think it's such a great school. I wanted to share with you our experience about a year and a half ago. My daughter, who was 10 at the time, was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she ended up having brain surgery at the end of June of 2019. And so the summer that we had was very boring. There was not very much that we could do. But we realized as the summer went on that one thing that she loved was reading. So we went to Edison's Gardens, to the little library, and started trading in books. And while we were there, she couldn't necessarily climb the playground or run around, but she could wander through the butterfly garden and look at the vegetables that were growing and dig in the little tire area. And The garden became a sweet opportunity for my daughter to get out of the house and to get some new books, and also to just have some time to heal. So it was a really tough time in our lives, but Edison Garden has a sweet spot in my life because I've seen what a blessing it's been to my family as we went through a really difficult thing. My daughter's doing great now, and we just wish you all the best and keep up the great.
The Junior Master Gardener Club, which we have mentioned, is a program out of Texas A&M University and is under the umbrella of the 4-H program.
We collect cans and bottles all year long to help raise money for the garden. Some activities are annual favorites, like winter sowing, where we plant seeds in milk jugs, take them outside in January, and we watch them grow. The seedlings grow all winter, and come spring are transplanted into our garden.
If you've never tried winter sowing, it is really fun. In fact, we try to keep a lot of fun in what we do. We are grateful for the expertise and help provided by Master Gardener and community member, Therese Melchior. She's definitely a hands-on helper. There is much to learn to become a Junior Master Gardener. Members learn about, complete requirements, and service projects in all of these areas: plant growth and development, soils and water, ecology and environmental horticulture, insects and diseases, landscape horticulture, fruits and nuts, vegetables and herbs, life skills, and career exploration.
During a normal school year, the club of 20 to 22 3rd and 4th graders meets weekly during the growing seasons of fall and spring. They meet every other week throughout the winter. Each meeting begins with a snack. Once a month, the snack is connected to our topic or theme for that week. The meeting then continues with an indoor learning component and an outdoor learning component as well. We incorporate themed games, guest speakers, and journal writing. Club members learn about composting and vermiculture, also known as worm farming.
Kellen, we're going to invite you to join us. Ready? Our meetings always end with our cheer.
Yep. Remember?
Junior Master Gardeners Grow.
Hi, my name is Kellen. I'm a former Junior Master Gardener. At first, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to join, but then I'm really glad I did. Because I learned a lot of things about nature that I probably wouldn't have learned about if I didn't join. And one of the things I enjoyed about doing in Junior Master Gardeners Club was we were like planting potatoes in like laundry baskets, and when we got to harvest them, it was really cool because they were all different sizes and so many different colors. And when I joined Junior Master Gardener Club, at the end, it really changed my perspective about the environment and how it all works. And I'm glad I did it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Sugelder, and I'm one of the physics.
Maybe that doesn't work. I need to back up. There we go. We are one of 5 schools across New York State to receive a very special grant this year. Here to tell us more is Nicole Sugelder. We hope.
Hi, my name is Nicole Zugelder, and I'm one of the phys ed teachers here, and I'm also part of the Farm to School team here at Edison. Our team applied to the Farm to School Institute in March, and we found out in June that we were accepted, which means that we've spent the summer planning and getting ready for our students to participate in this program. Each month, they're going to have a different theme, and we're going to connect the cafeteria, the classroom, and the community in teaching them about farm to school goodness. We already have a garden here, and you're hearing a lot about that tonight, but this program is unique to Edison. We just finished our Apple a Day event, which was our September theme, and students and families were able to come and pick up harvest bags filled with fresh apples from Smith's Apple Orchard, apple crisp that was made by Kim Roll and her staff, donations by a lot of companies of fresh apple chips, recipe cards, and a newsletter. We also have a Google Classroom that each month changes with our theme, with a lot of virtual field trips and learning to take place for them as well. So just sneak ahead, our themes are October, Fall on the Farm, November is Thank the Earth, and December is Unwrap the Hidden Vegetables. I'm sure you'll hear more about that later.
This spring, we are planning to expand our garden with a mini orchard by adding 2 apple trees.
It truly takes a village to raise a child. We are grateful for all the donations, grants, and volunteers of all ages who have made this garden a thriving place for learning and contemplation. As you can see, there are many to thank.
Members of the board, we've put together a gift for you from us. In the bag, you will find the wellness materials shared with our staff from our grant team, including a rock to paint, flower seeds collected from our garden, relaxing tea to melt away stress, and popcorn kernels from last year's JMG Club. We hope you enjoy these, and we look forward to seeing your contribution to our River of Rocks.
Thank you for this opportunity to share our school garden with you and our entire Kenton community. Everyone is welcome at our Edison Community and Children's Garden. So please stop by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Edison team. First of all, Kaylin, what an excellent job. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Our faculty, Mrs. Hirsch, Mrs. Sternin, Mrs. Zugelder, am I pronouncing it correctly? I hope so. Of course, Mr. King and Mrs. Kramer. And folks, this is a perfect example of a school community that continues to find ways to think out of the box to not only engage students, but engage the community and make the school the center of the community. So a special kudos to you, Mr. King. Your leadership As an administrator, I was out at the school today, just an excellent feel in the school. The garden is one of those memories. If you have not been to the garden, our public, I know our board and myself, we went there this summer, and it just has a very special feel to it that's unforgettable. So thank you very much for all of your dedication. We really appreciate it. Let's give the Edison team another round of applause. And so, Edison team, we're going to take, and our public, we're going to take a 5-minute
Can I
recess.
just a quick question, Mr. Swan? It's Kalen, right?
Colin.
Oh, Colin. Sorry, Colin. You did a great job, buddy. But where'd you get that Bills mask? That's what I really want to know. Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, so we're going to just take a 5-minute recess and let Edison and Franklin switch out, and we'll do the same thing with Franklin School. So thank you very much to all of the Edison community and parents, teachers, and staff for being here this evening. Are we back on? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so wonderful. Thank you very much again, and we're going to continue with our presentations. And now, once again, we have two schools this evening. So Franklin was Originally scheduled for October, we had Edison first, and now we're moving to Franklin Elementary. Franklin Elementary, led by Miss Kia Evans, is here this evening. And what we're going to do, just so that Franklin understands procedures, folks, COVID procedures, so please bear with us. First, we'll do the recognitions, and then we'll get into the presentation. For the recognitions, when I call your name, you'll come up and we'll recognize you. You'll stand right here while I read the piece about each individual. Then after that, we'll have the person being recognized have a seat in the chair. And Mr. Shamara and myself will stand behind so that some pictures can be taken. Families of our student, William, after William takes his picture, then I'll invite the family up as well to take a picture with their son, okay? So, without further ado, let's start with our recognitions. Our student recognition, Mr. William Van Dyne. William, come on up. And then, William, once I read, you can actually take the certificate for yourself, so I'm not handling your certificate, okay? So you could just turn around and face everybody. William is a third grade student who has worked really hard since going to virtual learning. He is an exemplary student and always tries to help others when they are having difficulty. He has a kind and generous spirit. William is polite, responsible, intelligent, and thoughtful. He can be counted on to make good choices and help when needed, not just when asked. He participates and enjoys learning. He is a true lightning leader. Keep up the great work, William. Please join me in congratulating William Van Dyne. So William, you could take that's for you and that's for you. You're very welcome. And then you could have a seat right here. And parents, if you want to come up.
Patrick, have him hold the certificate up.
And maybe you could stand on either side of William, and we'll stand back from you. Thank you. Now 3, 1, 2, 3. Wonderful job, folks. Our next recognition is to a support staff member, Miss Kirsten Hoffman. Miss Hoffman? Mrs. Hoffman is a teacher aide at Franklin Elementary. She is extremely organized and always willing to help whenever needed. I forgot it again, Gina. I apologize. She is great with students and staff members as she is extremely patient and caring. Mrs. Hoffman constantly looks for ways to be mindful, and she always goes above and beyond to help any teacher or staff member. She is a huge asset to the Franklin community. Please join me in congratulating Mrs. Hoffman. I wish I could. If you could just have a seat right here. And Mr. Shamara. Wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Hoffman. And next is our teacher, Rebecca Thompson. Mrs. Thompson is a valuable member of the Franklin Elementary School community, and she is the hardest working library media specialist that I have ever known. She is always visible to students when in the building, and she's always willing to be part of classroom activities. Mrs. Thompson incorporates classroom learning into her library lessons and is more than willing to try something new. She goes above and beyond to plan lessons that are meaningful and relatable. She is very flexible and is able to change an idea or lesson on a moment's notice and does so with a smile on her face. Mrs. Thompson is constantly thinking of and implementing exciting and educational activities for students. She is always open to trying new technology, ideas from teachers and students, and sharing her love for books in different and fun ways. To that end, Mrs. Thompson has also worked to have summer reading nights, nighttime bed stories shared digitally with families throughout the entire summer, and most recently developed a program to allow students at home to still access the books in our school library. Mrs. Thompson works hard to build relationships with her students and the other staff members in the building, and she can tell when students and staff need a seat on her bench. She is a trusted and loyal professional and is extremely hardworking and a flexible colleague. She is always willing to assist in any situation, and she puts the best interest of the students at the forefront of her planning. She is always willing to stop and help anyone and is a great resource for both staff and students. There is nothing that Mrs. Thompson does not do. She goes above and beyond her library job. For all these reasons, Mrs. Thompson deserves to be recognized. Please join us in celebrating Mrs. Thompson. Congratulations. I wish I could shake your hand. Excellent. Congratulations. Okay, and at this time, we would invite our Franklin team for the Franklin Elementary School presentation led by our wonderful leader, Miss Kia Evans. Let's welcome them for their presentation. Good evening.
Am I coming here and just lowering it here?
Yeah. There's a mic right by the computer.
Okay. Over here? Oh, this is even better. I get to have this is even better. Thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Kia Evans, and I am proud to serve as the principal at Franklin Elementary School. And with me today,
Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Radley. I'm the new assistant principal at Franklin Elementary School.
And I am Becky Kobielski, the school counselor at Franklin Elementary School.
okay. So thank you for asking us to be here tonight. And at this time, we would also like to say congratulations to this evening's award recipients. And truly, they're all valuable assets to the Franklin community. With that, we're also happy to announce what we would call our initiative for this year. And we thought long and hard and probably truly belabored coming up with like a big title for it, but really it boils down to a few things, and it's really just meeting students and families where they are. So that's really the work that we've decided to, the mission that we have set out for us this year, and these are the ways that we are doing it. Coming up soon. So we are working on keeping students engaged, providing the support that they need, and providing each other with the support that we need in order to be able to continue to do the work that we're doing. We are taking care of each other so that we can take better care of our students. It's the cliche, we recognize that it takes a village, and we take pride in some of our efforts, which we'll talk to you about throughout this presentation tonight. We are working on inspiring our students to stay connected and stay engaged. And we've said the first few weeks of school, the most important things were that they want to log on again, because they're not in front of us, and we can't just go up to them and give them a hug or say, come on, you can really do it. we need to inspire them and make them want to come back. And so we're focused on that. And the teachers spent the first few weeks truly just making connections with kids, getting to know them and building strong relationships. And this has resulted in students saying they look forward to logging on each day, which is exactly what we needed to do. Our attendance rate during this virtual learning phase has been phenomenal, which is very, very, it's not something that everyone can say, but it's something that we're extremely proud of. We're also encouraging our students to explore themselves, to stretch themselves, to help them as they are continuing to learn more technology, more things about themselves, more things about their classmates. And I think that the picture in the background says a lot about how students are also being encouraged to explore.
So as Mrs. Evans said, the village supports. We are providing academic, social, and emotional support to our students. And to do this, we needed to start by preparing materials in order to allow our students access. This included devices, consumables, and supplies. In many cases, we had faculty members volunteer to deliver these items to the homes if needed, so that we made sure that they were in the hands of all of our students in the building. Technology support was a big one. This included one-to-one sessions, providing explicit teaching on how to use the devices, the apps, so on, as well as troubleshooting support, which happens in the classroom, it happens in our main office. Sometimes Mrs. Evans and I field those calls, but it's continuing that process on to make sure that everyone is able to log on and be accessible to what the teachers are providing. It also includes having flexible scheduling, as teachers make themselves accessible to the students and family whenever needed. This includes small group instruction as well as one-to-one sessions and to both the families and the students.
So all of these supports we hope have resulted in what you're going to see on the next slide. So again, some of what Ms. Radley just covered, like this is what it looks like for us on, opening day, students coming in to get their materials. And we've been able to do some phenomenal things, which we'll continue to show you throughout the rest of the presentation. As we move on to, again, we have students here on one of the orientation days engaging in a library activity. And so again, the supports we've provided have allowed us to be able to do this. The student on the right is one of our students in one of our classrooms. The student is one of our students who is returning as of today all 4 days. He has been able to create a learning space at home that resembles, or it feels like to him, what it would feel like in many ways to be in a classroom. It's also allowed us to stay connected. On the left, you have me joining Mrs. Brydowski's 3rd grade classroom to read a book, and we're reading The Invisible Boy and talking about life lessons and what it looks like to practice and live your life according to a model which states that we support inclusivity and we support making people feel connected and stay connected. But we would not be able to do any of these things had we not invested early on in building those relationships and making sure that students and families had what they needed in order to be successful. So then we continue, and of course, as the principal, you're also thinking about, we want to connect with them, we want to support them social-emotionally, but we also want them to make sure that we're learning and we're teaching the standards. So in this, you'll see evidence of student work. The student work is submitted using Google Classroom or Seesaw. You have primary students who are making connections between the text that they're reading, the text that has been brought to us as a result of the Board of Education's and the district's decision to adopt the Scholastic Reading Program, as well as the text they're reading, drawing pictures, writing, and teachers being able to engage students in higher level thinking despite not being together in a physical classroom. You also see more examples of primary students working through, thinking about the literature that they've been presented and presenting their ideas, and teachers continuing to be able to build those skills that will ultimately lead to better, hopefully our students to be more successful, that level of academic preparedness that we want them to have when they leave us, even though we can't be together right now. As they move up from the primary school or primary grades to the intermediate grades, you see like that staircase of complexity, you see the literature, you see the writing samples becoming more and more complex, and students are asked to start doing a little bit more with the literature that has been provided to them. And then students are also being recognized and celebrated for their accomplishments. And it's, again, part of that building relationships, acknowledging how hard they're working, supporting them where they are, engaging the students, engaging the families. In fact, we had a special guest this week who helped us prepare as we looked for ways to support our students. And Scott, if you just want to show the audience.
Good morning, Franklin students and staff. Today,
Here we go, our special guest.
Good morning, Franklin Elementary. I'm Sabatino Somato, your superintendent, and these are our birthdays. This past Sunday, happy birthday to Isabella in Miss Morris's room. This past Monday, happy birthday to Robert in Mrs. Matia's room. And today, to Kinley in Mrs. Burns' room, to Lena in Mrs. Morris's room, and to Caleb in Mr. Becker's room. Happy birthday!
Okay, so as you can see,
good morning, lady leaders.
I can be quiet there, but that's us in our PBIS program where we look to recognize students who are being respectful, being responsible, being safe. And again, even though we're not physically together, we are still making it like a priority to be able to continue to have those connections with our entire school community. So thank you, Mr. Somato, for being this week's guest.
Absolutely.
As we continue thinking about ways that we are supporting our students, we're reading wonderful text, like I mentioned before. One thing that a student wrote that shows me that the teachers are doing the heavy lifting with the students and the students are there with us is they read the book, We're All Wonders, and then there it says, what makes you different and unique? What makes you a wonder? And one student submitted, well, she wrote, I am different and unique because I am mixed race, white and black. I'm a wonder because I imagine things. So again, doing some of those heavy liftings, making connections between the text and what they're writing, and really promoting that level of consciousness that we want our students to leave us with. So again, that's our initiative for this year. We also have our wonderful counselor here today, and I'm going to skip through adjectives and practicing independent writing, but we're doing it, and we're doing it without the children in front of us, and we're super proud of that. I do have one cute little example. I'm going to do one more cute little example, then I'm going to stop. I promise. If we can just, this is from one of our special areas teachers, again, how we're engaging the children even though they're not with us.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above, over so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
So using Flipgrid for students to be, again, they're engaged. This is part of their asynchronous instruction. The teachers have given them lessons to complete, and then this is how the students submitted evidence of her learning. And so I thought that was pretty special and worth sharing. And now, Mrs. Kobialsko will tell more about what we're doing to engage families and students social emotionally.
Hello, thank you for having me. So I wanted to start off by saying, this brings a unique situation for us, right? We're trying to reach students virtual, and now as we bring them back, working with them in the hybrid situation. So a lot of what Mrs. Evans was saying is building those relationships. Michelle Bailey is our school social worker, and her and I work very closely and similarly doing what we're doing for the students, faculty, and staff. So to start the year, a lot of what we were doing was working with parents, helping them be able to get on with their students, helping the students feel at ease. We had students that were worried about being on the screen, logging on every day, worried about sending in their work. So Michelle and I have been doing meeting with students individually and doing group counseling. We've been doing some driveway, dropping off some things so that we can do those group counseling with the students. They have materials that they need to work with them. One of the things is easing the students when they are coming back to us. So we've been wearing our little name tags so that the students can see that faces that we look happy when they see us, or putting them a little bit more at ease when we do have our masks on. In addition to the usual things that we're doing, the individual and group counseling and connecting with families and calling home, we've been gauging our classroom lessons around that social emotional piece. So I have been very fortunate to be on my second round of being in the classes already with the students virtually, so they've seen me, and now today I've been popping in. But hearing those lessons around supporting, you know, all the things that they're going through, because right now they are going through something very different that they've never experienced. Michelle and I set up a Google Classroom that we just launched this week, so students are able to get onto that classroom. It has activities for them to do, some you know, mindfulness activities. It also has a student check-in, so if they feel they need someone to talk to, they can fill out the form. It comes to us, and we'll give them a call home. It also has a parent support section, and Michelle has added some wonderful things for parents. In addition to a survey that we have put out, just asking parents, do they need support? Do they need help with mental health services, food, shelter, anything that we can do? So I think, you know, just being flexible with both our virtual and hybrid learners.
Okay, so all of what we talked about is that, a lot of what we talked about is while students were, things that we were doing while students were 100% virtual. And I think a lot of what we've done have led us to, the decisions we made early on have allowed us to be able to do what we did today, which was bring back our first group of students hybrid. So this is a picture of a kindergarten student who they're back in person, and then they're in school now and they are learning in person in the hybrid model. And so all what we did was helping us prepare for this transition, and the students to be able to come into school now. They have a relationship with the teacher. They are familiar with somewhat, especially because of our orientation days, some of the routines and procedures that they need for in-person learning. But they are also okay for those virtual days. Those days where they will need to be able to log on and participate in the instruction from their homes, because we can't all be together yet. And so again, more examples of just the students really getting ready for what we started today. These are from our orientation days, and as well as the teachers. We have third grade teacher here, Mrs. Wozniak, and this is in a picture of they prepared bags for the students, and they contain instructional materials, but also a little pumpkin and activities for them to do for Halloween, because we can't be together, but we're still together. And so here was something else that I wanted to highlight, because, you know, she'll engage the student and engage the families with doing the instructional activities, but also the activities for Halloween. And then last but not least, but Patrick was going to give me the signal if I'm going too long. I'll just start.
Hi,
second grade
I'm
teachers
Jen Burns. I teach second
who
grade
share their
at
perspective
Franklin
on
Elementary
what
School,
they are
along
doing
with
to engage,
Jen
inspire, and
We team
support.
teach second.
And we'll stop. We'll start it and then we'll stop it after about 1 minute.
Grade, which has been an amazing and unique experience for us. And we've been asked to kind of tell you what our year has been like so far. So first we're going to talk about engagement, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how teachers have been engaged. It's amazing the things you can find on the internet these days. We have searched and learned things from teachers in other countries, people who have begun their teaching year before we did, so they're a little bit ahead of us and they've already worked out the kinks, so we've been borrowing their best practices. Also, the Scholastic series that we've adopted has really kept kids engaged. The stories that they have, the books we read, really keep the kids engaged, not only with the amazing pictures, the beautiful colors, but the stories themselves are really relatable. Also, we've been talking about how the apps for Scholastic have really kept.
I think we might be having a little bit of difficulty with the sound too, so we'll stop it there, but we've shared the entire video with Gina and with Patrick, and if you're interested in taking a look at more of it and hearing more from the teacher's perspective on what they're doing, those on the front line to meet students where they are, please by all means go ahead and watch the rest of it. And just in closing, we just want to sincerely thank you for all of your support, because of your support we are able to do what we are able to do each and every day. So thank you to the Board of Education for all that you do to make this possible. And then that's it.
And board colleagues, I'll just say, if you're going to sum up what I've seen from Franklin in some of the early visits that I've done to the building, it's, in one word, it's culture. The culture is wonderful. The orientations, the kids were so excited. There were staff buzzing around like crazy. The kids were never alone for a moment, and they were just, it was seamless and flawless. So excellent job with your leadership, Ms. Evans. Continue the great work.
Thank you. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, I believe we're taking another 5-minute break now. Ms. Evans, is there any chance I can get a hold of that video, the part with the guest speaker that you had?
No, there's zero chance, Mr. Chair. Yeah. We're just so happy that Ms. Evans brought that today. That's it.
Okay, we're going to take 5.
7-7.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mackenzie?
Yep.
Yeah?
My son gives me one.
I was going to say, well, the best is my mom will send it to me, and then my dad will send it to me.
Oh.
And I'll ask it, well, who's school? And neither of them will respond.
Yep.
Sheena?
I'm going to run to the laboratory really quick since we're on a recess. I'll be right back.
Ty? I know.
They already sent it to my wife at home, so I had to hear about it all weekend. Everybody knew that we saw over the weekend. She had to show clips of it too.
Who sent it to her?
Huh?
Who sent it to her?
I think a picture. Didn't you send it to her?
Not me. Where'd they get the email address from? Not me. I was gone. I was at a wedding.
Franklin sent it to me, and she told me I got to send it to her. You had me worried for a second.
I know.
Are we good?
Thank you. They just remembered.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, I think we're going to get started again here. We're up to item 9A, public comments. Let me read the guidelines for making public comments first. Any person may make public comment by placing his or her name, address, contact information, and topic on the sign-in sheet. Public comments during public session are a one-way communication. The speaker will be recognized by the board president, stand at the podium, and state his or her name and address. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. A tone will sound when the speaker's 3 minutes are up. At that time, the speaker should conclude his or her comments. At a public board meeting, no person may orally initiate charges or complaints against individual district employees or board members. The speaker will be stopped if any board member or district employee is mentioned by name. Speakers are expected to avoid defamatory, abusive, or vulgar language. The president may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, the speaker persists in improper conduct or remarks. And it does look like we have one person that wants to talk this evening, Jessica Brumbaugh. Did I say that right, Jessica? How are you doing tonight?
No.
You could use that microphone, the big one, yeah.
Jessica Brumbaugh. My address is 172 Southwood Drive, Tonawanda, New York, 14223. Hello. I have 2 children, a 9th grader at Kenmore West and a 7th grader, formerly of Hoover Middle, now attending private school at St. John the Baptist. I've been active in the district as a parent and former employee. I have volunteered with the Hoover Elementary and Kenmore West HSA, have been on the Hoover Middle PTA board for the past 2 years, including the position of president last year. I was part of the reopening committee this summer for Hoover Middle, and I was a school monitor at Franklin Elementary in Kenmore East for 2 years. I'm here today to ask you to reconsider the dates of your hybrid plan and get our kids back in school now. Several other large school districts in Western New York have been back in school for 6 weeks. Other districts are moving up their dates to welcome students back. New York State says it's safe for us to be back in school. Why is our district not getting our kids back into school buildings where they belong? What does it say to you that your enrollment is declining since parents are pulling kids out of the district left and right? We chose to pull our son out of the Kenton Public Schools and put him in private in early August when we saw the poor planning and lack of decision-making by the district. Our daughter remains in the district for different reasons. Our family is lucky to have been able to make the choice to go private for my son, while other families do not have that option. His school is doing 100 times better than Kenton, which is something that makes me sad to say, but it's the truth. They are learning so much every day. He just had a walkathon, has a Halloween event coming up, and has made so many new friends. My daughter, on the other hand, is stuck at home. "Remote learning stinks" is a quote from her, and she wants to be back in the classroom. The school year started off great, and I give the district and our wonderful teachers credit for making it so. However, remote learning is not sustainable, and I already seen the problems with remote learning this school year. On last week's asynchronous day, 2 classroom assignments were, what is your favorite board game, and what is your favorite color? How sad that this is what my high schooler is learning in Kenton. Kids are getting a smaller dose of school under the current full remote model. Because the kids are not in the classroom, excuses continue to be made why direct instruction is not happening, and the accountability and inconsistency among some teachers is starting to resemble what it was in the spring. I understand the district cannot go full-time, but a little time in school is better than none at all. I hear people say this pandemic will pass, and we will get back to normal and our kids will recover. I fully agree, but my kids are in school age now. And the longer they remain at home, the farther they get behind. My home is not a school. I understand this pandemic is not what anyone planned for, but it's here to stay for a while, and we all must adapt, including this district. It's been 6 weeks since the start of school and 8 months since the pandemic first started. Why are you not ready to get our kids back in school? There's no excuse. I found it insulting that you approved and value sports in our schools over our children's education. You are our district leaders, and we're asking you to listen to us parents and understand that what is in place is not working. We need you to fix it and not give up on the school year and not give up on our kids. I am asking to please push the timeline of the hybrid model sooner. How soon will it be that class absences are at an all-time high from remote learning exhaustion? Our district is already miles behind others in Western New York going to school either full-time or hybrid, and the longer we stay out of school, I fear the worse it will be. I feel for our elementary kids who cannot learn in front of a screen, feel for our middle schoolers who need the social interaction, and I fear for our high schoolers trying to prepare to get into college or go into the workforce, prepare for Regents exams that I don't see how they can be allowed to happen again this school year, and to our seniors who are missing that last year of their childhood before they become an adult. I do not want my family or anyone else in our schools to get COVID. Will a case occur in our schools? Hopefully not. But if it does, we know that you will know how to handle it, just like other districts have handled it in Western New York. Please, for our school buildings with our children eager to learn and to return to school. We know that you will put their safety and the staff safety as your #1 priority. Please do not make us wait another 5 weeks and then another 6 to 7 weeks after that to get our kids back into school. Again, thank you to the teachers, technology department, food service department, and staff at all our schools for their hard work this school year. Thank you for your time, and let me know, and us as parents, if there's anything we can do to assist in getting our kids back to school. We have a great district, community, students, parents, administrators, teachers, and staff, and board, in which I know we can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malbrough. We appreciate your comments. Okay, moving on to item 10A, which are our board committee reports. I'll go through our list of committees, and if we have a report, we can report at that time. First, our audit and finance committee. Tom, I know you were at that meeting the other night.
Sure. Matt and I attended that meeting, and in which the external auditors, John Chacon and Mary Young, walked us through the draft budget report, or audit report. And I'm happy to say that it was a clean audit, and we had some good discussion about it. And at the end of that committee meeting, the committee members voted to approve the draft to be submitted for the board consideration tonight.
Thanks, Tom. Our next committee is our Board of Education Subcommittee. Do we have anything on that? Any report tonight? Yes.
No update right now.
Okay. Next is our Erie County Association of School Boards Budget and Finance Committee.
That's me again. We had a meeting on October 8th of the ECASB Budget and Finance Committee meeting. And we talked quite a bit about the programs that ECASB is offering this school year. And one of the blows, because of the COVID-19 epidemic, is that the summer law conference was canceled, which means for the ECASB, they were deprived of about $21,000 in revenue for the time being for our budget, their budget. Among the other programs that have taken place already is the Fall Awards Dinner, and that was successful. And I just want to mention that Gina Santa Maria won a special recognition award, just one of 2 individuals to get that sort of recognition. So we're very proud of that. programs from now on, at least until January, that ECASB sponsors will be in person. And they've already issued the rules about that, I think, in an email. But there's a maximum of 50 people, of course, in the room for those presentations. The Albany Update coming up next month with Dave Little as a presenter, the Legislative Breakfast in November, and then the speedboarding, all with just a maximum of 50 people able to attend. And what that boils down to is that it's really only 38 registrants, because both the ECASB cabinet and presenters and all that will also be in person. So keep that in mind if we want to attend those, get our application in as quickly as possible, so they're guaranteed a space. And I think that was about all the budget. We did meet the new part-time auditor who was hired for ECASB. He'll be working, I think, about 10 hours a week. And that's about it.
Thank you, Tom. Next we have our ECASB delegate meeting, which I attended back on September 10th. In attendance were delegates, a delegate from each of the school districts in Erie County. Part of the meeting was, the first part of the meeting was basically to appoint members of various committees and teams that exist within the association. We then opened up discussion about, as we did back in September in our meeting here, about our NISBA resolutions and amendments, and there was really no discussion. Nobody really had anything to say. There were several updates to the yearly calendar because of the COVID situation. And then Dr. Jill O'Malley, our former board president, who's the ECASB associate director, gave an update on the new ECASB website, which is pretty cool. When you get a chance, if you take a look at it, there's a lot of great information there, especially her page on her advocacy section. Everything you need to know about our local, state, and federal representatives can be found on that part of the website. Probably the most interesting part of the evening to me was we went around and each person in the room shared what their school was doing. Remember, this was back in September 10th, what their school district was doing and what their reopening plans were. And the reason it was interesting is, after sharing our plan, there were a lot of positive comments and questions. In fact, after the meeting, 2 board members from other districts stopped me to talk more about our plan. So it was kind of good. It was a good feeling to talk about that. That was basically it for that committee. I also attended the Staff Development Policy Board meeting, which was held on October 1st. And the main purpose was to review what the board was about for the sake of new board members. That was done first. There were 2 subcommittees established, the Budget Committee, which I'll be part of, and the Public Relations Committee, which Trustee Battaglia will be part of. The center's bylaws and tasks of the members were also reviewed. The director, Elaine Abeloff, gave her director's report, basically saying that just about all classes through the center right now are being held remotely. There are a couple exceptions with a couple of very hands-on classes. One example I noticed in the booklet is there's a class on snow blower maintenance and repair that's targeted toward our buildings and grounds people, and that needs to be hands-on, but it's kept to a very small number, and social distancing rules are practiced. There was also a discussion about the minimum number of participants in a class in order to hold the class. And then Elaine, probably the most important thing she talked about was her concern about the status of our teacher-centered grants. And she mentioned that there are rumors that we may not receive our last payment from our grant from last year, and the possibility of a cut to our grant this coming year. And know Leslie has a little bit more to talk about that.
Okay, so I actually also attended virtually the staff development committee meeting, and I actually I learned about the grants. I had an extra conversation with Elaine Ablov about it, and it kind of goes along with the committee meeting that I attended after that, so I'll get to that one in a second. But Elaine did tell me that NYSET is actually sponsoring a meeting that she's going to attend to try to help directors of teacher centers to protect the funding, their grant funding that they get. So she, I believe, will be attending that meeting next week, and it's again sponsored by NYSET. So kind of a little bit of a hope there that maybe NYSET can provide some good help and aid on what to do, and maybe to reach out to New York for that. The other thing I kind of thought was kind of nice, I wrote down a little comment that one of the science teachers, and I wish I could remember her name, reported that Kenton does an awesome job with their staff development for science teachers, and she specifically said it was much better than the district she last taught in, I think she said 7 years ago. So she was very appreciative of the courses that are offered, and I was really wowed by it because I'm a teacher in a different district, and I thought it was just impressive that, in essence, teachers run their staff development, which I thought that was really cool. So I was happy to be there.
Thank you. Next is our ECASB legislative team, which is Leslie Elsley.
Yep, that's me too. So I attended that committee meeting on September 24th. It was a little similar to the meeting that President Shamira attended. We got to meet each other, we got to talk about our districts, and to talk about what's going on in our districts. So it was nice to sort of hear from other districts how things were going. It was a little bit of an orientation for me since I'm a new member to that committee as well. The biggest thing that the legislative committee does is advocates to all of our elected officials for protecting funding for education. And right now, the biggest question, one of the biggest things we talked about was federal funding. We don't know if the federal government is going to pass another act, another CARES Act, for funding, and we're really hoping that something happens with that. That was a large part of what we talked about. I actually will be very happy to write a letter on behalf of the board to our members of Congress, both in the House and the Senate, if you would like me to. As far as our state delegation, it's a little up in the air right now because we will have a new assembly member and a new member of the Senate after the election. And I, again, would be happy to write a letter on behalf of the board, just advocating to protect our funding. That was sort of one of our biggest discussions about protecting funding for education. Our next meeting is actually Thursday, so I'll probably have more on that. It's kind of unfortunate that it's just in 2 days from now, but they did talk about the legislative breakfast that you addressed to that will be in November. They were a little worried that some of the elected officials had not yet said whether they will be there yet. So I'm hoping to find out more about that on Thursday night. And then the only other thing, which was kind of interesting, and I actually passed this information on to Superintendent Samato after I was at the meeting. One of the representatives from another district passed on some information that T-Mobile was actually sponsoring a K-12 government account to help kids and families who are having issues with access to Wi-Fi. And I passed on that information to Superintendent Samato, and he mentioned to me that Debbie Apolito was actually had an appointment to meet with the T-Mobile people about that to provide some help for kids who are having trouble with Wi-Fi. So I was pretty happy to help with that. And that's, I think, pretty much my report for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see, Family Support Center, anything?
Our first meeting is this Friday. Both Tom and I are members of that, so it is a virtual meeting, but we are both planning on attending, so we can update you next month.
Great. How about the SAVE Committee? Is that not yet? No, nothing yet. Technology?
First meeting is coming up, oops, where did it go?
21st. So, attend that.
And the Wellness Committee. Anything on that yet? No? Okay. All right, moving on. Any board comments? Just one thing I wanted to just say to my colleagues, at our retreat in August, we began the process of using SuperEvail to complete Superintendent Samato's evaluation for this year. The superintendent has now completed the next step, which was to finalize his goals and competencies in the program, so feel free to go take a look, and we'll monitor things as the year goes on. But thank you for doing that, Mr. Samato.
Thank you.
Any other board comments? All right, let's see. Next item is the NISBA Convention proposed bylaws, amendments, and resolutions. I know at our September meeting, we opened up discussion, and Andrew provided some background for us to what that was all about. And we did have a couple questions back then, but we said we would reopen the discussion if anybody since then has looked over those resolutions and amendments and had anything else to bring up. I'll be going to the NISBA convention, which is remote this year, their business meeting to vote on those resolutions. Anybody, anything to bring up further about those? Okay. Next is our Student Board of Education Representative Report. Our two student reps have been working really hard on what we think is going to be an exciting venture for the district throughout this year. Lauren Reinhardt, our Kenmore-East rep, couldn't be here tonight. She's got a soccer game. She plays soccer for Kenmore-East, and they're playing in Grand Island. So that's the other big game going on tonight. But we do have here with us Kendall Rock, our representative from Kenmore West. And she's going to, this project is just at its very beginning stages, and she's going to give us a quick overview.
So,
Maybe just hold it. Okay, there you go.
over the past few weeks, Lauren and I have been meeting with both Mr. Samato and Mr. Shamera to try and figure out how we can make the most of our position that we have this year. So we've come up with an idea to have students from both the middle and the high schools meet with their district principals, and then also come up to a higher level at the district to meet with all of us and give more of a leadership opportunity to them, and also give them, so we can get feedback on both the middle and the high schools. So we're just in the early stages of this right now, and over the next few weeks, we plan on this meeting with the principals in the buildings and trying to get it rolling. So hopefully we'll have more information at the next meeting.
Thanks, Kendall. Great job. I mentioned at our last meeting, I think, when we introduced Kendall and Lauren, that they were chosen from a pretty significant group of students that applied for the position. And the more we work with these two, the more I think Mr. Samato will agree, we did a good job of choosing it. Okay, next I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Samato for the district update.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, President Shamera, and excellent job. The leadership that you guys are showing is quite remarkable, so very proud of you, very proud of you. So, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much. Tonight, if we could bring up that presentation. So, I'm a big believer that whatever we have to say in summary, or whether it's a lesson or summarizing, that we should do it within 3 to 5 slides. So I hope that you're going to see that from me during our time together over the next several years, is that there will be some times like this first slide that I'm talking you through actual points on the slide, and then the other slides I'm going to ask Ms. White and her team to join us in giving us an update and concluding the update for you. So in our 3 to 5 slide presentation this evening, you're going to see we're starting off with the whole purpose of this presentation is to tell you where we've been, where we are now, and then where we're going, okay? And to focus on the opening of the school year. And just to recap, my part of the presentation, I really want to talk about these dates. You'll see important dates up to this point that are in this timeline. You'll see that July 9th is that first date, and that reopening task force assembling. That reopening task force included all of our building representatives, our administrators, teachers, and parents from the buildings. And then keep in mind, folks, that the buildings were also holding meetings simultaneously. So that task force would come together. Those buildings would also have their own individual building meetings to implement and begin to plan from that task force. But on July 16th, New York State released our 145-page reopening guidance document that included the specifics that school districts would have to consider. And within those specifics, we knew that we had to plan for 3 models for our reopening. That we were either going to be in-person fully, that hybrid approach, or a remote option. And all school districts throughout New York State had to be prepared. July 31st, school and district reopening plans are posted, and that was throughout the state. We had to not only put them up on our website, but then go into the Department of Health and New York State Education Department and post those links for to bring right to our plans on our website. On August 7th, that was the big announcement from the governor on the reopening decisions, which he said that it would be left up to individual school districts and their level of readiness. On August 10th through 14th, our virtual learning registration. So what we initially had families do was register for our virtual learning academy, and we asked them to dedicate in that virtual learning academy for the first semester. In other words, if we were coming back in any type of hybrid or in-person model, these are the families that said we would prefer to stay remote. Part of the governor's guidance and NYSED's guidance stated this year that we need to offer multiple forms of education. That if we were going in person, we still had to give the option, and we can understand that. We're living in a pandemic. The option for families to be able to remote learn if they had either underlying conditions as a student or if they had circumstances at home that they would want to keep their students at home. August 13th through 20th, 13th and 20th, we had virtual parent questions and answers. So during these, we actually sat down, and it's something that we took away as a learning from this, that we had virtual sessions with our parents. We did a presentation, and then we took questions, and it's actually done right here in this room. Our monitor is set up there, and we have teams of our staff that are answering questions live via YouTube Live. And parents can type those questions in and get their answers immediately, and we discuss some of those topics of interest. I'll discuss them live with parents and get a little bit deeper. It kind of has a weekly update feel to it, but a more interactive of how we proceed with that. August 21st, remote learning hybrid and phase-in plan announced. And we're going to get to that next slide, but this is when we announced to our district, to our community, that we would be starting in a remote model, and we've landed on a phase-in approach, doing a 5-week increment with the phase-in approach to make sure not only that to meet the 2 objectives, safety and security for all of our students, families, and staff, but then also having the best learning model possible at this given time. So that was when that was announced to all the community, and we proceeded forward. September 2nd and 3rd, Remote Teaching and Learning Summit. That's when all of our teachers and our staff went through various trainings to continue the training. Our teachers and our administrators and our central office staff are providing the training as well, but they have been wonderful, growing since March. The model has always been growth. We know that last spring, all districts were put into this. It was more of a survival mode. This year has a much different feel. It is very challenging. It's challenging on families. It's challenging on educators. It's very challenging on students. But the point was, how could we come up with a better model that we knew that students could not stay online for 6.5 hours straight a day, There's no way they can do that. How do we mix that very synchronous learning that would happen online with asynchronous assignments? And our teachers went through various trainings during that summit. September 8th, first day of remote learning, and that's when we started district-wide, first day of school. September 17th, Kenton announces approved fall sports will proceed. And through the updates, I kept the community, we kept in conversation also with our reservations that we had with athletics. The biggest difference with athletics, number one, they moved, the state decided to move certain sports, our higher risk, a lot of our higher risk sports, to the spring, which left our moderate and our low risk sports happening in the fall. And the biggest difference, the thing that brought us over the top was, number one, masks were going to be required at all times. And to be very clear, and Mr. Banker, who will give a short presentation later on this evening, and our coaches have done a fabulous job, but we've been very consistent in the messaging, because you'll see other districts sometimes the students won't have masks on. They make it voluntary. In Kenton, it is not. It is a must. All of our athletes have been doing a fantastic job with that. And the other thing that put us over the top is that it's fully voluntary. We're not forcing anybody, different from an educational model. We're not forcing anybody that it's a one-size-fits-all. If you feel like you're comfortable with your child playing under these circumstances, the not only Section 6, but our Niagara Frontier League has gone through many diligent efforts to make sure that they're providing safety in all of these sporting events. And then we let a parent and student choose if they're going to participate in these events. For September 24th, you see that our 5th virtual parent question and answer. So that was our 5th session by this time. We had 4 previous to the end of August. Our 5th for our live YouTube session, which we are going to continue throughout the year. Our September 30th and October 7th were the orientations that you heard some about tonight. From both our Franklin, and I think Edison even brought them up, but Franklin especially, discussed the orientations. And our October 13th, which is today, to bring us to the present, our first day of in-person attendance and hybrid phase-in. If we could go to that next slide, please. So this is the one-pager that everyone has become so familiar with and where we are right now. We're in phase 2. You heard from a speaker tonight that we're always looking to get us back even earlier. This was almost like a benchmark that we were setting for ourselves. Now, the thing about this one-pager is absolutely the fact that there are a lot of mitigating circumstances that will contribute to if we can speed up, and also if we have to pull back and slow down. I'll give you just one quick example. Our governor announced last week that we are now going to be looking through the state at zones. Put these zones into context that they will be red, orange, and yellow zones. Red zones, the governor will be announcing there is no school in those zones other than remote. And we'll look at infection rates, because in certain areas of the state, infection rates have been climbing even faster than others. Okay? He also then announced what orange and yellow zones meant when it would come to testing, and would there be remote or would there be able to be hybrid instruction. So that's what I mean by the fluidness of this pandemic that we're in. It will change, the guidance will change from the states, or from the state. The guidance will also change from the Department of Health. Our Department of Health in New York State gives guidance, and then our Department of Health in Erie County provides further guidance if they're going with New York State's guidance or if they're tweaking it specifically for Erie County. So there's a lot of moving parts here. The goal of you being able to reflect before we get to our presentation of what our orientations and today look like is that, once again, most likely, to full disclosure, November 16th is going to stay the way that it is. What we're looking at right now, and we'll take the rest of the month of October to evaluate, is if we can move up that January 4th date. That's the goal. We would like to move that up, and everybody is on board with that if we can meet it safely. We're also looking at best instructional model. There is nothing about this, and you've heard me say it in the weekly update. You've heard me be very transparent with the community. There is nothing about this that does not stink. There is nothing about it that does not stink. But what we are trying to do is offer the best education that we can currently. This month of October will be very telling for us. It'll be telling for us as we're coming now into flu season, if things are going to change as far as requirements on school districts. We have some school districts, even most recently, that have shut down schools into remote. This is not where we want to be. As KenTom, we want to keep on moving forward. The best instruction that we could give, of course, will be in person. That's what we're striving for. So as you see over the next month, and I've updated you on this in our weekly updates, we will be having these conversations. We'll be involving our schools, our parents, we will be involving our unions, and getting collective feedback from the boots on the ground, what we can do. Here's the good news. Some of the barriers that we had to start the year are no longer barriers. We have great PPE in place. We have all of our, there were certain drawbacks in the beginning. I wasn't sure if we were going to get our polycarbonate in for our youngest kids. We weren't sure where we were with our sanitizing products. There's still a couple of hiccups there, and we always want to make sure everything from airflow and filters to how we disinfect and sanitize. So all of those will continue as we learn through the doing and what we're doing right now, but everything has been going very well. So that is our update. Thank you very much for all of your support, for your patience, for your advocacy within our community and helping to explain, because folks, we're living it all the time, and as a board, you're living it. Our parents are going through a lot. Our parents are going through a lot. Trying to do this with your child at home while trying to maintain a household, while trying to work, while trying to keep your family afloat, and all of a sudden now you're the educator, and monitoring your child is a very, very tall order, almost impossible at times. So we appreciate all your advocacy and your patience in helping our families understand how we can together move forward. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent White and her team to just give you an update of where we've been for the past couple weeks now. They're on a little bit of delay in the other room, so.
So my team is a little light tonight. Mrs. Cross being as a parent of a senior, we have senior college applications sometimes. So I'm going to turn over to Mike Estrell to walk us through just some of the highlights of our first couple of days of welcoming our children to our buildings.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our orientations at the elementary level and some orientations that took place today at the middle school and high school. So we divided the students into two groups at the elementary level, Group A and Group B. Our first orientation was held on September 30th for Group A students in kindergarten and first grade. And our second orientation was held on October 7th for Group B students. In addition to both of those orientations, our self-contained special education students at the K-4 level attended both orientations. We really felt this was a high priority for us to get students back in the building to learn new procedures. On top of not only being maybe a new student at kindergarten, our returning first graders of just riding a bus for the first time, wearing a mask, learning how to wear a mask, what a mask break looks like, just simple hallway movements and movement throughout the classroom and throughout the building, going through procedures for eating lunch, eating breakfast. At the elementary level, both of those are in the classroom now. And just talking a little bit about how to exit the building, how to enter. So our teachers really did a great job focusing on those procedures and meeting the students for the very first time. Our middle school and high school self-contained special education students had their orientation today, which was their first day, on-site and reviewing safety and instruction. I was over at Franklin Middle earlier today, and they were meeting with students, reviewing those procedures. You can go to the next slide. So today was our first day. It's been a target date where the energy was alive in our schools. It was beginning the phase 2 of the hybrid phase-in plan. So we had a little over 465 students that were scheduled to attend school today. That includes our kindergarten and first graders and also our self-contained students. Tomorrow, or later in the week, Thursday and Friday, will be Group B. About 468 students scheduled to return in Group B in kindergarten and first grade and our self-contained. In our middle school and high school, we're scheduled to attend today as part of our self-contained special education students, K-12, who are returning back. Our focus right now is focusing on the orientations for grades 2, 3, and 4. Those are scheduled later in October, on October 28th for Group A, and November 4th for Group B. We're going to replicate a lot of the same activities and procedures and bringing those students back in preparation for our return to school on November 16th for our grades 2, 3, and 4 students. Again, a lot of excitement today. Students are smiling. They're excited to be back in the buildings. They're excited to see friends. And our staff was really excited and helping out where they can to welcome our students back. We're looking forward to Group B returning later in the week. Any questions about our orientations or today being the first day of school for our kindergarten, first grade, and self-contained K-12?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Muscarella. So it's very important to recognize, ladies and gentlemen, that when I was in buildings today, I'll tell you some firsthand accounts of what I saw. I saw kindergartners coming in where a parent who normally can walk a kindergartner to their class on the first day of school had to recognize that they could not enter the building. There is nothing beautiful about that scene. But I will absolutely tell you, because of our wonderful staff, our administrators, and our dedicated families, and those orientations that happened this morning, it was seamless. The buildings that I was at, you saw a parent bring their child up. The child was ready. The child looked ready. They felt more confident in what they were doing, and the parent felt more confident. Now, is this the best situation that we could have? It's not. The best situation would be if we're not in a pandemic. But because of the work of our staff, of our schools, this morning, at least from my perspective of what I was able to see, the administrators that I spoke to, the teachers, I'm telling you, at Hoover Elementary this morning, there were staff everywhere like bees buzzing around in the summertime. It was just wonderful. Parents were walking kids up. Another staff member comes and helps a kid and walks with the kid. Kids getting off of buses, tons of staff members walking with the kids off the buses. And the whole point of it was that these orientations really helped for the students to be ready for the day. But the dedication of our staff was second to none. So it was a very wonderful morning. There's more to come. I'm hoping, let there be no mistake, we have a lot of challenges in front of us. We have a lot of challenges in front of us. I'll give you just an example, and some of you, when I've seen, we've talked about it individually. A new thing that came out a couple weeks ago was you'll see that some other districts have had to go, certain whole classrooms have had to go into quarantine, because certain guidance and the learning from the pandemic and under COVID is that even though we have all of these things in place, and we've been educated on this as superintendents, so we could have polycarbonate in place, we could have masks in place, we could have a social distancing in place. If we have a positive case inside of a situation, and that case is there for longer than 60 minutes, it is pretty definitive that everyone within that situation is going to have to quarantine. So the way it's been explained to us by Dr. Burstein and her crew that have been doing a wonderful job is that, yes, these things help, but they are not the preventative measures that are going to stop COVID-19. All we're doing is putting things in place to help prevent the spread of this virus. So you'll notice that even strategically, that even at this meeting, we decided to move forward with a board meeting that is live and in person. Let there be no mistake, there was nothing about this decision that was easy. Why? Because if we were in the event that one of us contracted COVID and we came up with a positive, and New York or Erie County Department of Health had to contact trace, everybody that is in this room for longer than 60 minutes would have to quarantine. That is one of the challenges that we're facing. And Mr. Chimera, myself, Gina, you as a board, these are all the considerations that we take in this day and age of COVID. You'll see strategically we even put other people in other rooms. Heaven forbid if we were in that event so that someone is here to run the district, because you would lose a superintendent, a board of education, and cabinet members all at the same time. So not to mention our families that are here as visitors today that are here for longer than 60 minutes. So it is a challenge. It will continue to be a challenge. We will continue to face the challenges. We will continue to put our best thinking around it, but full transparency, there may be times that we are pulling back. I can guarantee you that there are districts that you will hear of this week, because I heard of them today, that have announced their board meetings that will be in person and are pulling back from that because they've had an experience in their district where many people have had to quarantine at one time. It's just learning that I experienced today. So please stay tuned, please stay patient, please continue to promote the collaboration that we all need together to get through this. Even though we become more used to this pandemic, the pandemic does not get any easier. As we find a vaccine and we're told other guidance that we will follow as a school district, that is when the true progress will be made. With this, actually, I'm gonna, Mr. Banker, I'm gonna hold off on you for a second. We do have a part of an athletics presentation, but when we get to Mr. McDowell's section, we're just gonna close off Ms. White's section, and then we'll get to that, and we'll go to our athletics conversation. But any questions on anything that we've presented under my update? Okay. Thank you very much for your continued understanding and dedication, and hopefully we're here next month and smiling even more, that things are getting even more back to normal on a month-to-month basis. So that is my update, President Chimera.
Thank you.
Now I'll introduce, okay. Just, and thank you for the procedure. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Kelly White for an update on instruction and student support services.
I just have a couple of items tonight. One, I am presenting for a second read the code of conduct addendum with an amendment. For you, do you have any questions on that? Okay, thank you. The other thing is the official school opening enrollment. So we do this each year from Wednesday to Wednesday, so you can see the enrollment how that looks right now. So as we suspected, there is some decline. It looks like kindergarten enrollment is significantly lower. We heard from many families who decided to delay enrolling their children in kindergarten this year as a simple result of the pandemic. And they just want to keep their children home for another year. those children do not show up on our home school because current students are not required to file an IDA. So that data may not be displayed elsewhere. And you can see our homeschooled students. That was also a significant increase of about 100 students. Interestingly enough, the students enrolled in non-public schools actually went down by about 50 students. But in general, the trend, enrollment trends continue to be somewhat minimal over time. Are there any questions on the enrollment report? Okay. I had a couple of contracts under the taxes agenda. Were there any questions on either of those contracts? Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent White. And folks, let there be no mistake, the decision to start off the year in remote does have an impact on our enrollment. And parents were, many families were put in the position where they're worried about childcare during the day, as you can imagine. And some have decided, hopefully we will get them back, but they have decided either to homeschool for this year or to go elsewhere. Okay, and that is absolutely one of the things that comes into our decision making, and it makes this even harder, as Mrs. White has summarized for us. To move on to our financial report, I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Mr. McDowell, before he begins, I would like to just say that this is our last meeting with Rob. Rob is a class act. As our interim assistant superintendent, he has done a very great job for our district. And before he begins, I just would all ask you to join me in thanking him for his service to Kenton over the past several months. So Rob, thank you very much for a great job.
For our last meeting, I have a lot to talk. We have 2 presentations today, 3 action items, then agenda items, and we have contracts. So we'll start with the external audit. Mary Young from McCormick, graciously waited for the presentation herself today. Her and John came last week as one of our board trustees stated, gave a presentation to the audit committee. I'm just going to give a 15-minute presentation or so today because we do go to Bill's here at halftime. And some people would like to get some of that. So, Mary, without further ado, 14 minutes. I'll take the board.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Thank you for the opportunity to present. I did provide a presentation, but I'm not sure where it is. So anyway, last week, myself and John Chavone from our firm, Lumsden & McCormick, met with the Finance and Audit Committee to discuss the audit and to present drafts of the reports, as you mentioned. And the Audit Committee did approve those. Should I? So what I'm here to present to you today is the deliverables, the auditor's report on financial statements. It's an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion. It's the highest level that you can receive from an audit. And the auditor's report required by government auditing standards. We had no matters or findings associated with that audit. The auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program and on internal control. This is required because you spend more than $750,000 a year in federal funds. You had about $6 million of federal fund spending in 1920, which was very consistent with the 19 year. You're considered a low-risk auditee because you haven't had any findings in the past few years. And we were required to test programs each year. And this year we tested the special education cluster, which had about $2 million worth of spending. It was about 32% of your federal funds. The data collection form is a form that's required to be uploaded to the Federal Clearinghouse. It summarizes all of your federal grants, and now that the audit's approved, we'll work on preparing that, and we'll work with management to get the approvals for that and get that uploaded. We also provide a financial statement on your extra classroom activity funds. The communication with those charged with governance and the management letter I'll go through at the end of the presentation. And then just some other matters that we have here that we discussed with the audit committee, which is just some possibilities for funding for school districts in the upcoming years based on COVID. You know, the federal government is providing states with some funding, and you know, some ways that you might be able to close any budget gaps that you might have as a result of COVID. This first slide with the numbers is a summary of funds. So we have the general fund first. Non-spendable fund balance is just some, you have some, it's a cash surrender value of life insurance policies that you have on some, associated with some retired administrators. And then you have your restricted funds. And you can see the changes year to year. You've used some of your employee benefits reserve, which is your reserve for employees' accumulated vacation and sick time. Retirement contribution reserve increased, as did some of your other reserves like your workers' comp and your unemployment. Debt service, which is required to be used for your principal and interest payments. And then you can see the decrease in the capital reserve and overall your general fund reserves. And the reason for that increase is because the district transferred $10 million from your general fund to your capital projects fund, so that that money could be used for future capital project costs. So it was all part of the management's plan and the district's plan to have a capital reserve and then to use some of that money, including some general fund money, towards your capital projects. Overall, your unassigned fund balance is 4% of your 2021 budget, which is in compliance with state law. And your total fund balance in your general fund is about $32 million, which is about 23% of your 2021 budget. So strong fund balance in your general fund, even given the transfer over to the capital projects fund. So you can see the increase in the capital projects fund balance, a small increase in your school lunch, for a total fund balance of about $50 million. Taking a look at the general fund revenue, very consistent revenue year to year. You only had about a $135,000 decrease from 2019 to 2020. A couple things to point out. State aid, SED did suggest or did indicate that they would be withholding 20% of the September state aid payment, September 2020 state aid payment. So that adjustment was made on the financial statements as of June 30th. So your state aid reduction includes that 20% withholding. Sales tax, we had expected that sales tax would decrease given the shutdown of the economy and a lot of the businesses in April, May, and June, given COVID. So we did see a decrease in that as well. And then a decrease in your other revenue. That's just a function of in 2019, you sold your Phillips Sheridan building, and that was about $1 million of additional revenue that year. So the decrease in that line is really a function of the sale of that building in 2019. General fund expenditures, your salaries went up about 2.5%, which is in line with your collective bargaining agreements and the increases stipulated through those. Employee benefits decreased about 3.3%. Most of that was a reduction in the teacher's retirement system required contribution. The rate for 2020 was lower than the rate for 2019, so that was really what drove the employee benefit decrease. Overall, your salaries and employee benefits is 75% of your total general fund expenditures. So that really drives what your bottom line is going to be. Debt service, you had a big band payment in 2019, which you did not have in 2020, so that's the reason for that decrease. And your BOCES services was really consistent year to year. Overall, your expenditures decreased about 4% from last year. So strong fund balance. I think the district is monitoring their expenditures and their revenue, and making sure that they are watching the trends of what might happen in 2021. This page is just a summary of the government-wide section of the financial statements. The financial statements do have two methods of accounting. One is the full accrual, which includes your debt and long-term liabilities and capital assets. And then the other one is the fund basis modified accrual, which I was just speaking about. This page is your government-wide, your full accrual. And this just shows some of the differences year to year based on that. Probably the biggest difference is in the pension and OPEB line. There's quite a bit of a decrease in an asset there, about $9.8 million. That large decrease is a result of actuarial reports that increased your employee retirement system liability by about $12 million. So changes in actuarial assumptions and expected versus actual investment returns can change those numbers year to year, and there was quite a big change in the ERS number. That didn't just affect Kenton, that affects all school districts and municipalities in Western New York. Taking a look at the other reports, communication with those charged with governance. This is one of the required reports where we point out the more important estimates in the financial statements and the footnote disclosures. We didn't have any disagreements with management, and we didn't have any material adjustments. So it was a very, as I said, very clean audit. And then the management letter, these are just some comments and observations we have from our audit. We've discussed with management, and we've had these, some of these comments previously, just reminding people involved in your extra class clubs to reconcile student records to the central treasurer's records, be cognizant of getting signatures, having supporting documentation, and looking at clubs with little or no activity to see if they're still active. Accounts receivable, taking a look at any balances that are over a year old and determining whether or not they're collectible. And then there's a few government accounting standards that are coming up, one in 2021, another in 2022. Those were both actually postponed because of COVID. And one that's fairly new that's coming up in 2023 that has to do with cloud-based software. Does anybody have any questions about the numbers or the reports?
Well, if you don't have any questions, I just want to say thank you to ERIE and for group performing. I think the superintendent stated this different times. We're in the COVID-19 era, and one thing I can say to Mary, I used to be an auditor myself. Being an auditor, you're on site, you're observing people and what they do and how they work and how processes are done. So this was unique for everyone to have to do this remotely because most of the jobs is on your phone or just asking for information and download. So most important thing is that the audit came in as expected, just virtual financially, and finding that areas have been so great research. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to just point out, as Rob just said, to thank everyone at the district, everyone in the accounting and finance office who really, really helped us do. We did conduct a majority of the audit remotely. We did come on site, a couple days. Everybody was great about social distancing and making sure that, everything was above board. So I really do want to thank the district. I know it's very difficult times to have auditors traipsing through.
Mr. Tomato, would you like to have that go next?
There's a few action items I think that we just need to do, right?
Yes, we can do those.
Let's do the action items and then we'll do Brett's.
Thank you. We have two other action items. Response to the external audit. Mary, let's discuss one with extra classroom activity and the other with our accounting people. The big concern we have with this extra classroom activity is that we have 14 of our 94 clubs had no activity at all this year, which is about 50% of them. And more or less, they're looking just to make sure that there's a plan. What are we going to do with the club? Is it going to continue? If not, what are we going to do with the funding, and are we going to transfer those? So more or less, just looking for a plan in a direction. And for the accounting people, again, the balances that we have, are they collectible in itself? What is the reasonable time frame? Then we're going to write and give them off to that more time for that. So that's the response to the auditors, external auditors report. And then we have the normal budget calendar for the 22 budget year. As you have read already, the process starts tomorrow for your budget for next year. So those are the three items that we would like to bring to the work for action today. Step back over to the superintendent.
Okay, so we're actually going to take those one at a time. So President Chimera, will submit to you the financial report and ask for the board to take action on that.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the financial reports and audit? So moved by Andrew, second by Tom. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Our next action item, President Chimera, is the response to the external audit. I'd ask you to take action on that as a board.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the external audit? So moved by Leslie. Second by Andrew. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
And then the final action item is on the budget calendar that I'd ask the board to take action on.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the 2021-22 budget calendar? So moved by Andrew. Second by Leslie. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously.
And then, Mr. McDowell, I just have you, I'm going to ask you to finish off on your section with the B&G report, food service report, transportation report, and then we'll close off your section with Mr. Banker and our athletics update.
Thank you, Mr. Prince.
What's that?
So we have three other reports.
Yeah, I know, they're not action items, but just so we could finish it off.
In the financial section, building and grounds report, service report, transportation report. Nothing out of the ordinary for any of those reports. I do know in the building and grounds report, we talked about issues that are happening in that department. Then there are some other things going on in the end of the law that we'll talk about later on. But just looking for consent on those three reports, and the bank report is
No consent, just to move forward. It's not on the consent agenda. You're just including it, so there's nothing on consent agenda. There's just any questions or?
Any questions about the report? Thank you. Mr. Banker, would you like to talk about
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Believe it or not, yesterday marked week 4 of the fall interscholastic season already. Week 4. The regular season goes through November 5th with sectional play for those teams that qualify starting November 9th. Now, even without football, boys and girls volleyball, and girls swim, in 3 weeks' time, if you take 1 week for practices, this being our 4th week, in just 3 weeks' time, we've had 80 competitions. That gives you an idea of the breadth of this program and how large it actually is. We've had 80 competitions in just 3 weeks. I'm very proud of our athletes. Mr. Samato mentioned it earlier, and our coaches. They have been outstanding with the protocols. They've been strict. Kenton's protocols are as stringent as any districts in the area. And Kendall will tell you how difficult it is to run cross-country with a mask on. But if you go by our fields and you look at our pictures, our kids are wearing masks. It's becoming frustrating for our kids and coaches because other schools are not. But I've tried to explain, I've met with our 20 sports that are going on, and I've just said that, you know, this is the Kenton expectation for us to be out there and to be safe. Are there any questions about the fall update for athletics? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banker. Thank you very much, Brett. And so, folks, it's still a challenge, okay, with athletics. It's not something that's going to be easy, but one of the great things about athletics is that just like our model on that one pager where we're phasing into everything, these are students that are having experience phasing into the procedures and protocols that exist throughout the district and that we have in place for them, and they're doing a fantastic job. It does continue to be a learning experience for all of us, and I think from students all the way to monitoring events and how we proceed, you know, I'm not going to lie, people are scared of doing things wrong. People are scared of are they doing everything right? And we're continuing to learn every day. And thank you, Mr. Banker, for your leadership. And for all of our coaches, please thank them, especially on our behalf for that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Richards for any updates that he may have.
I do not have any report tonight. That concludes my report.
That was the best part, right? So, and thank you. Jeff and his team continue to work very diligently on hiring. We are experiencing challenges every day, not because our staff mean to create challenges, but once again, we are in a pandemic and our staff are family members also. So they are experiencing challenges just like everyone else in the community, and Jeff and his team are really doing an excellent job. You saw one of the updates. I do want to include one of the updates that our community will see is our attestation that we are utilizing as a district. We purposefully started today continuing using the Google form, and our families will receive test messages over the next several days. A group and B group will receive different tests, and that is to test our implementation of a new program and a new attestation program that will formally begin next week. We'll test it for the rest of this week, and they will get several different messages from the district regarding that. So you may hear from the community that we are testing a new application. And I did make a decision, something that we did add on to consent agenda. Thank you for understanding. at the last moment. That was not a company that was looking to just continue to charge us more. That was a decision as your superintendent. We tried to do a back-end way to possibly even, not tons of money we weren't saving, but any money that we could save during this time, and a back-end way for us to roll that out utilizing our student information system, and I just was not happy with the way it was working. So at the last moment, I asked for an addition to be on our consent agenda so that we did not have to wait any longer, and the company is willing to help us on the front end. Like I said, not a huge expense. Nonetheless, it is a small expense, but I'm confident that this way will make it better for our families and we'll have less complications. So that was the last minute addition that you heard about today that is on the consent agenda that added for your approval.
And Superintendent D'Amato, if you don't mind me chiming in, the reason why he brought it to the board is because the cost is over $10,000. We have to bring it to the board when it's over $10,000. And normally we would have bid this out, but in so many ways it's almost like a sole source type of service once you start down that road. So for us to stop and then go somewhere else, probably a good chance we could have lost our initial investment. So part of the main reason why we brought it is because of those particular reasons. I haven't spoke to our auditors about it, and when it's all said and done, as long as we can document we did everything we could and we were pretty much physical, decided to go partway down that road, that's a legitimate reason to continue to go down this road. So that's the reason why we brought it to you today.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gina. Next we have our consent agenda, and President Chimera, I'd ask for approval with consent agenda.
Okay, are there any requests to withdraw specific items from the consent agenda? Okay, then do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved by Andrew, second by Tom. Any discussion? Okay, there being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 16A, other matters. Any other matters to bring up? Okay, if not, we don't need an executive session this evening. So do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Tom. That was quick, Tom. Second by Jen. Any discussion? There being none, I call for a vote. All those in favor so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. We're adjourned.